Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. You just look at these headlines. From Coin Edition, XRP investors pin hopes on August 1st SEC meeting for regulatory clarity. Well, I'm no time wizard, but that's today is what it sounds like. And then there's also this one from Crypto News Flash, Ripple versus SEC. Final judgment expected this week as XRP case heats up. And so what I'm seeing on social media as well as throughout from various crypto media outlets is all of the speculation, all sorts of rumors made from the rear ends of who knows who about this case ending imminently. It is a bunch of garbage. I'll show you where it came from, provide you additional insight from somebody who is actually in the know. And I'm going to show you just for fun, because I've never done this before, I'm going to show you a list of everything that has been filed in the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit over the years, and it will make your head spin just looking at it. It is completely outrageous. It's just, maybe it will be as outrageous as you'd expect. And then I'm also going to cover this from the Crypto Basic. The headline is 3 reasons why the final ruling in Ripple SEC lawsuit may do nothing for XRP price. Looking forward to discussing that one. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so some of you who may frequent my YouTube channel know that I've been talking about this topic a fair bit recently, not because I so want to, but because it keeps coming up again and again and again. And it's just amazing to me. So there are some people in the community, I'm not saying it's a majority, it's a very small percentage, who will propagate these rumors and nonsense, adding credence to them as if, oh, look at this, maybe there's something to it, when they well know better. There's all sorts of people that know better, and they propagate it. Then there's people like me who will highlight it just to tear it to shreds, which I think is the right thing to do. But it just keeps happening, and it's for very similar or same reasons again and again and again. Look at this headline from July 19th. I covered the story at the time. This is probably my 3rd video on this over the last 3 weeks, but this is for new instances of these particular types of charges. These are brand new charges for this video. I'm not just rehashing it, but here is an example of something from a couple weeks ago from Daily Coin. SEC and Ripple talk still on. What's next after the delay? And they cite here a meeting that was, in this case, what did they say? Was this the one where it was rescheduled? Either way, the meeting, originally scheduled for July 18th, fueled speculation of a potential end to the ongoing lawsuit between the SEC and Ripple. So this keeps happening here. But as it turns out, there are these regularly scheduled meetings the SEC has having nothing to do with Ripple. And so these are publicly, in terms of them being scheduled, it's public information. And so what the public is doing is every single time one of these things is scheduled, which is almost every single week, by the way, literally almost every week. When that happens, some people will take that, and because it cites a type of topics that could be discussed, part of that includes settlement talks. And so here's something that's broad, having nothing to do with Ripple. People see settlement, SEC, oh, it must be Ripple, SEC settlement talks. There's totally they're connecting dots that should not be connected. Absolutely not. And so take a look at this from Coin Edition. Again, the headline, XRP investors pin hopes on August 1st SEC meeting for regulatory clarity. Anticipation dampened last week as the keenly followed SEC closed-door meeting, rumored to involve a potential settlement with Ripple, ultimately failed to deliver any significant updates on the case. Yes, so I'll pause to note that's true that there's a rumor, but there's nothing to the rumor. It's just people saying things on the internet. Makes me extra glad I have this platform so I can set the record straight. Piece continues. However, the XRP army is now shifting its focus to another upcoming SEC closed-door meeting scheduled for August 1st. Bah, bah, bah. That's today. Did we get our settlement? Did we get it? Is it over? No. Because it was stupid to think it would have been. Similar to previous meetings, the agenda for the August 1st gathering includes a range of topics, such as the institution and settlement of injunctive actions and administrative proceedings in ongoing litigations. Meanwhile, speculation is swirling on X that Judge Annalisa Torres is pushing to deliver a final judgment in the protracted legal battle between the SEC and Ripple as early as this week. While the likelihood is low, a final court verdict in the case is nonetheless imminent, as affirmed by Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. Right, so there is speculation. The thing is, people are speculating that It's imminent. Judge Annalisa Torres. She's going to do it. It's going to be this week. There's nothing to that, though. Could it be this week? Yes. Does anybody have any insight that would make it reasonable to suppose that it will be this week? No, absolutely not. Nobody. The only person that knows for sure when it's coming out is Judge Torres. And even she might not know yet. Maybe she's not done. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she has a rough idea. So even if it ends up being the case that we do get news this week, it's not reasonable based on publicly available knowledge to assume at this exact moment that it's going to happen. That's all I'm saying. Why? Well, take a look at this. And this is I think the best breakdown of why this makes sense. And so there are a couple of examples of this. So somebody shared that story about the August 1st meeting. And you have former SEC attorney Mark Fagel responding. And he said, only the ill-informed, because I need to read this first, actually. Brett Hill, XRP community member. Nothing against him. He was sharing the story. Maybe he thought there could be something to it. Could be acting in good faith. I'm not going to assume one way or another. He says, XRP investors pin hopes on August 1st SEC meeting for regulatory clarity. And so he's just repeating the title of the article there, and he's just sharing it. Now, Mark Fagel writes, only the ill-informed ones. The meeting has nothing to do with Ripple. And Attorney Fagel, of course, is correct. Now, how do we know that? Well, that takes us to this thread. There's an XRP community member named the J. Nelson Way, and he says, and by the way, this is yesterday. He posted this. The alleged SEC Ripple lawsuit private meeting for Thursday was just canceled. Was it canceled because they have no need for any further discussions? Does this mean a settlement is coming in the very near future? Okay, so I'm not questioning his integrity. I don't know who this is. I'm not aware of him. That's not a slam against him either. He may legitimately just be asking. He may actually not know. There are separately, though, if he's not one of them, there are people who do know better. I am highly convinced of that because there are all sorts of people like me correcting them again and again and again, but they just keep spewing the same rumor and BS over for engagement. That's what they're doing. And so they're intellectually dishonest people, and then I don't like them. I don't like people that are intellectually dishonest. I like people, I don't dislike somebody for being wrong. I dislike somebody for misleading intentionally. Like, if you're doing that, not a big fan. So I'm not saying he's doing that, but either way, it is not reasonable to suppose that that's what's going on here. And so Attorney Fagel, former SEC attorney, responds and says, if the regular weekly meeting that never had anything whatsoever to do with Ripple is canceled, it can only mean one thing. And so obviously he's having a little fun with it because it's basically, like I said, every single week there's one of these meetings. It's for the same broad purposes as publicly stated anyway. You don't know what's happening on the inside. We're not privy to that. And so that's why he says, there you go. It can only mean one thing. These meetings that happen every week for any number of reasons, it can only mean that it has to do with Ripple, right? And it's canceled because of Ripple, right? Obviously, that's silly. But again, this individual may not know that, so nothing against him. But he responded and said, do you understand the meaning of alleged? There are rumors circulating that they were to have discussions this week and potentially even under the sunshine meeting. Yeah, a lot of people, not him necessarily, but there are all sorts of people that are connecting dots and absolutely running the rumor mill based on BS. And then stories get covered, and then people who maybe are operating in good faith end up propagating the stories and they don't, and again, nothing against, if they don't know better and just like, hey, it's being discussed. I get that. I understand that. I'm totally understanding that. But I'm just explaining that's what's happening here. And I'm glad that I get to smash this thing to pieces, this whole concept, because it's BS and nonsense. But Attorney Fagel does a great job explaining why. Check this out. So he says, as the one person here who has actually attended SEC closed meetings, several hundred of them, I can assure you that's not what happens at closed meetings. The J. Nestlin Way responds, appreciate your insight. Could you shed light on what actually happens in closed meetings? Also, if you reread my post, I ask questions rather than make statements. The one statement also included the word alleged, so really you can't fault me for how the post was laid out. Yeah, and so I'd agree with that. I think that's fair. As long as he's operating in good faith and he didn't know the answer to this, of course, if you don't know, you ask questions, you share information that's publicly available. That's the right way to approach this. Absolutely. My critique is more so about the people that have demonstrated they know better because they get corrected again and again and again, and they keep doing it, which means it's for engagement farming. Those people I don't like. Those people I find despicable. But anyway, we get some insight here. So what's actually going on at these meetings? How do we know it has nothing to do with Ripple? Well, here's what Attorney Fagel said. The Enforcement Division presents recommendations, usually new case filings, see that? Usually new case filings, to be voted on. They could also present a settlement to be approved, but it would need to be negotiated with the defendant first. If that had happened with Ripple, the court would have been notified. Well, how about that? And then it would be on the docket, wouldn't it, folks? If there was something agreed upon, it would be on the docket. The judge would know, so that the judge wouldn't put out a ruling given that these two parties agreed on something. You'd be like, hey, judge, stop. Don't put out a ruling. We just agreed on something. We're Ripple and the SEC. Stop it. And that would be publicly available. That has not happened. And he indicates that. He writes, as there is nothing, as there's nothing on the court's docket, the parties haven't notified the court of a tentative settlement. There are other ways for the enforcement staff to get a settlement approved by the SEC, but those are outside the closed meeting context. The J. Nelson Way responded and said, where does one find access to the court's docket and locations signifying notification of a tentative settlement? And Mark Fagel was kind enough to share that, and I'm going to highlight it with you because it's obscene. Like, oh my God. Because I'm not an attorney, so like I'm not used to seeing this stuff. If you're an attorney, maybe this is like par for the course, but given that this is a multi-year case, I was like, whoa. So here it is. Here's Court Listener, and this is what was shared by Mark Fagel. He wrote, here's a public version of the Ripple docket. And so I'm just going to scroll through this. So here's the top of the page. Let's scroll. And you can see here's the first filing, December 22nd, 2020. That's the original complaint. You can just scroll on down here at a reasonable pace. All of the filings, all of the attachments, everything. And you can just click on any of this. You can check it out if you want to. You can have a fun little weekend up here. You just read everything. What a party, you know? Bring a little wine. Just sit back out, sit by the fireplace. Just have a nice little wine. Relax. Just print it all up. It'll be good. It'll be a good time, right? That's page 1 of 6. So you can go to the last one here. That took us to May of 2021. That was like half of a year worth of stuff. I'm not going to show you literally every page, but here's the more recent stuff. You can see June and July of this year. Look at all of these attachments. Holy freaking hell. The paperwork. Just slaughtering trees. The SEC is slaughtering trees. And so there we go. For those who look at the screen, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like it's absurd. And all this for a case where there was no fraud and none of Ripple's customers were even alleged to have been harmed. None of them. Literally none of them. And here we are. It's so stupid. Now, XRP has legal clarity, so I'm pretty thrilled about that part, but anyway. Oh, and then we got this. 3 reasons why the final ruling in Ripple SEC lawsuit may do nothing for XRP price. I'm not going to read the article. They were talking about this post from XRP community member Rachel Renee. And I will say this. I think that the logic behind what is on your screen, which I'm going to read in a second, I think the logic behind it is sound. Now, that said, I absolutely acknowledge that there could be a run in price, whether it's small or big for XRP, if we get news that the market perceives to be positive from Judge Torres. I acknowledge it could, but I still insist it won't make sense. And I think the logic from Rachel coming to this, or maybe it's Rochelle Renee, the logic getting to this conclusion, I think the logic is sound, whether it ends up coming to pass or not. So here's what was written. I hate to be the one to say it, but I do not think the final Ripple SEC Torres event will do anything for the price of XRP, and here's why. Number 1, it is simply the details on how Ripple will be punished for the few minor indiscretions committed. Number 2, the point at which clarity was decided would have been the time to see it move upward in a big way. It did not. Number 3, institutions only needed to hear it was legal now to buy, hold, and use. That happened. They do not need to hear or if Ripple will be punished for a few early sales of XRP. All my opinion. I do agree a minor bump in price may happen, but this will not be the moonshot. Again, my opinion. What will move XRP? I think news and announcements of global players that show the use case and proof it's in play. Players like Bank of America and other large-scale institutions. Okay, so let me start with where I don't agree, and we'll kind of work backwards there. What will cause the price of XRP to increase? Well, it's somewhat complex, but I'll try and be as short as I can on this so as to not drag out the point. I don't want to belabor the point, but utility does matter and will win the day. That's my investment thesis. Has been since 2017. That's the reason that I put so much money into XRP and HBAR and other coins that actually offer utility. There's a reason I've done what I've done. And then I have other stuff where I'm less confident. I went out the risk curve and I just have broader exposure. Cool, right. So that's what I've done. So it's very clear that global speculators on a global scale, they do care about various metrics and various attributes of blockchains and coins attached to them. And it does center back to actual utility. It all drives back to that. Whether you're talking about developer activity, total value locked, just pick a metric. It all relates back to, is this damn thing useful? And so the coins that are going to have long-term viability are they've got to be useful. You're not going to have coins that do nothing, literally just hanging out for reasons. Like because reasons. It's not going to happen. Not long. If you fast forward decades from now, I don't believe that's the case. That's my belief, right? So the utility does matter, right? That does, but what mostly drives faith? So there are people like you and I who are in the know, and that causes us to invest in certain ways. Do most investors think about it in that way, and are they analytical to that degree? I don't know. I have some hunches that a lot of people, they're just really whimsical about investing, very emotional. And so what can we back out though? What can we actually see that causes the price of XRP to go? What has always happened? It's been liquidity cycles. So when they're talking about individual instances, if you're talking about a news event driving price in some sort of big way, we've got a decade of history showing that even if you're just talking about Ripple, which is what most people point to when we talk about this, any news event with Ripple positive having to do with XRP, it's never moved the price of XRP. Find one example. If you could find one, I'd say, okay, you found an outlier. If you could even find one. It doesn't happen. That's not what moves price. Yes, there are people like I that help to ensure there's a floor in terms of, are investors going to go away? Are they going to stay here for the long haul? Well, as long as it's useful, investors like you and I are going to be here. And then there's everyone else that acts differently. There's everyone else that just jumps in when there's more money. They got to throw money somewhere. And maybe they're not even as long-term as you and I. And there are these liquidity cycles. And as they're so that's when people are willing to take on more risk. Like when there's more money. When more money is available, people go further out the risk curve. They do it in the stock market, and they do it in the crypto asset class, and they do it simultaneously in both. Historically, they always have, going back 15 years, because we got 15 years worth of data, right? Roughly speaking. So that's what actually, as people have more money, they have to put it somewhere, and they do. So those are the moments when you see the big shots to the upside. Now, if there's no foundation, eventually the coins that don't have a genuine foundation, they go away anyway. So that's why I'm a huge fan of XRP for that reason. It's functionally useful, so I don't think it goes away, despite market cycles being what they do, extreme volatility. That's my belief, right? So I disagree on the points where this individual is saying it's about global players and this and that. Not quite. I would parse it out differently. It's like, it's humans like you and I that speculate that cause the price of XRP to be what it is, right? But in terms of when it blasts off, has very little to do with that. It's moments of euphoria. It's emotionally driven. When we've seen the biggest moves for XRP, those were not news driven. Those were emotionally driven movements. Back last market cycle in 2021, also at the end of 2020 in November when it rocketed up to 80 cents before the SEC news broke. And then in 2017, right? And even when XRP had a 12-fold increase back in whenever, I can't remember if it was 2014, whenever it was, very early on, it went from half a penny to 6 cents. That wasn't news-driven. There are just these moments of euphoria, right? And sometimes they're outliers. I mean, some stuff will run crazily outside of liquidity cycles. For instance, there was in 2019, Chainlink ran crazily. So that stuff does happen. But broadly speaking, if you look at an asset class, no, it all goes together. Either there's expansion in a market or there's not. Then as far as the other points here, I actually agree with the logic behind it. I just don't know how the irrational speculators are going to behave. Does it make sense if you get good news for Ripple and they maybe pay a tiny fine in the remedies phase here, and that's that? Does it make sense for speculators to throw money into XRP for that reason? No. XRP already has legal clarity, so I agree with the logic behind this. Actually, that part of it I agree completely. It doesn't make sense. But will the humans do that anyway? They might. They might. And if they do, I'll be happy to see it. And could that be what actually triggers XRP to finally go on its first crazy leg up this market cycle? It could be, because we're in a bull run. So if that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, so be it. I don't know. We're going to find out together. But it's not because of the news itself. Not really. Not in any sort of material, important way. That would just be proof, I think, of the market saying, wow, we don't know what the hell we're doing. Take my money. Like, it would look more like that to me, just personally. That's my humble opinion. You guys can tell me what you think. So those are the 3 reasons cited by this individual. But it shouldn't... I think it's sound. The logic is sound. You shouldn't... It doesn't matter to you. It does not matter to you what happens with the conclusion of the SEC v. Ripple case. But the market might disagree because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and it could go anyway, and I absolutely acknowledge that. So we'll see. You guys let me know what you think. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.